Hello, I'm June Montour, and welcome to the Child Development course of the Paraeducator program. From the information provided in WebCT of this course, we have learned that there are many theories of child development from a Western perspective on how children grow and develop. From a First Nations perspective, we do not often think of child development as just one phase of life. It is part of the whole realm of human development. It is difficult to separate child development as one study in itself. All phases of human development are connected, and what we do in one phase of development affects the next phase. I'm honored to introduce our guest speaker today. Myra Laramee is a member of the Fisher River Cree Nation. She has been an educator in the inner city district of the Winnipeg School Division for the past 30 years and principal of Niji Makwa Elementary School for the last 12 years. She is currently working on a PhD and has been an instructor in Aboriginal education at the University of Manitoba. Myra is also a traditional bundle carrier and teacher. Join me as Myra shares her knowledge about human development based on the traditional teachings of the eagle feather.
Good morning. My name is Myra in English, and I have been asked to speak about child development as First Nations Indigenous people to this land have always understood it and have always seen it. And the idea that a child is a gift or a loan from the Great Spirit. A child is lent to us, lent to the world, so that we as adults and older people can view that child as someone who has come to teach us. And so in Creator's plan, we always see that child long before they ever arrive physically on the earth. And when we talk about development, it's kind of a foreign term to us, because there's a natural flow. And the natural flow that happens is God's will, Creator's will, in the plan that He has for humans on the earth. And so there is an intention that every child who is conceived has, that comes with them to this earth. And there is many relatives who have gone on, who influence pre-birth conception, because as the child is conceived physically, the notion that all of these teachings and these laws and this life that we had since time began, pieces of that come with the child. And so it's very important for us to understand that prior to a child coming to the earth, that when they are in the womb of the mother, they are probably the most sacred of all the time that they give to us. And it's important for that community and that family to be of sound mind, sound body, sound heart when engaging in activities before the child comes to the earth. It's very important, and it always has been very important for us to sing to the child, to talk to the child, to touch the belly of that mother that's carrying the child. The mom is the vessel. The mom is the vessel for Creator's plan. The child is Creator's plan. And so pre-birth is very, very significant to our people. And there were sounds that would be made There were teachings that would be told. There would be songs that would be sung. All the time that this baby is coming to the earth, there would be work that would be done. The seasons, the changes of the seasons would be felt by that child in the womb according to what the community was involved in, according to what surrounded that mother. And that mother was considered to be one of the most sacred people, because as a vessel, she carries the intention that Creator has for us on the earth as a people. And during the time that the child is coming to the earth, where the woman goes into the birthing process, it used to be that the old women were very, very important during that stage of childbirth. And usually there was a number of old women that would gather around and help that woman with the birthing process. There's different understandings and different teachings about how women would do childbirth, would actually function in childbirth. But the way in which I will impart with you is the way that I know and the way that I have been taught. And upon the time that embryonic water breaks, the women who were older, who knew, who carried the knowledge about our ways, would take some of that water and pray with that water, that embryonic water. And in that embryonic water they would see the gifts that the child was bringing to the earth. And when that child arrived, they would already know and how the child was to be raised. They would already have an idea of what it was that baby was going to offer to the earth, who it was in the village that needed to guide that person, how were they to be taught, what were their gifts. All this they could see in that embryonic water. So when they say, as long as the waters do flow, that's part of what they're meaning in the teachings that I have been given. And that path that child comes with is much like this eagle feather. And if we consider how this eagle feather is dressed, this stem is wrapped. This stem is not exposed. That's the channel that the child comes. That's considered to be the birth canal, the connection to the grandfathers and the grandmothers. And this stem here is what's connected to the greatest spirit that we have, the eagle. And the eagle talks to us about that truth and that honesty. So in that life, when that child is traveling down that birth canal, it is considered by us that child's first struggle. And it is that mother who gives that child the very first struggle that they have on the earth, is to struggle for life, to struggle for that life that they're going to fall into. And when the children are coming here, we don't consider hitting them to make that first cry. We have belief that that child will make that first cry, and that there are ways to help that child without striking them. It's understanding that a child, when they land here in this plume part of the feather, that's the kind of landing that they're supposed to have when they arrive on this earth. All this gentleness that this plume can offer at this bottom is that transition from the mother's womb, the spiritual realm, into this physical realm. This path here, that's the center of the eagle feather, is the path that is given for each of us to walk. And there is no one eagle feather that is the same as the other, just like there is no leaf that is the same on a tree, just like there is no snowflake that falls to the earth that is the same as the other. The human capacity is as those natural things. And so when this child lands here, they have an opportunity to make one good footprint in front of the other. But this very first stage of living, where the child is in this plume, the child is also, as here, wrapped in this mother's womb, in that confined place, in that place of safety. The child is also immediately wrapped when they come to the earth, so that there is not that much foreignness to the physical world from where the place that they come from. It's also important that prior to coming here, that we understand that that water that that child lives in for the 9 months that they are carried is to be kept sacred. And so we make sure that the things that we put into our bodies during that time will influence that water, will go into that water. So we try not to put anything into our bodies during that vessel time that we are, that's going to hurt or harm that child. Because long ago we understood the gift that was coming. We understood that there was a potential and that there was a value and importance in the life that was going to arrive. Upon arrival, those practices that the old ladies had of seeing how this child was going to be, was put into play, and that the baby's coming was immediately understood that this treasure was to be taken care of. This treasure was to be looked after. And there are people who have shared with me that we went as far as to understand that in these 7 stages of life that this eagle feather has for us, that we weren't boss over children. We weren't authority over children. We were caregivers to children. And so we were in a caring way to watch that child within the family first, and then within the village next. We were to all be responsible for the caring and the sharing with that child. And so that everyone in the village, everyone in that child's life, had a responsibility to model the best things that they could model. In the very first stage of life, that child would be wrapped in a very tight manner, as they might be in the womb. That feeling of tightness was important for that little infant that came here. And that stage of life we call the good life. We call that life the good life because there a child was able to see all the modeling of what good living could be, what their potential could be. The sounds that were made were good sounds to that child. The sounds that were sung were good sounds to that child. That child was in a totally dependent state of being. And so there was unconditionalness in that when they were wrapped, they were being sung to or spoken to in ways that were important for how that child would grow into those gifts that they were given by Creator. And in that wrapping, some of our people had a particular tool for child rearing practice, if you will, if we want to use that kind of language, that we called a tikanagan or a cradle board. Mm-hmm. Or we had, for those people who didn't have that, there was the moss bag. And the cradle board or the moss bag allowed the mother to carry the child in ways that would not inhibit her from doing her work in the community. And they carried the cradle board on their backs. And many visions that you see today of that cradle board experience has the woman carrying that strap on her head, which is not accurate. It's not an accurate depiction of the use of the cradle board. The cradle board was carried around the shoulders, was strapped around the shoulders so that the arms could prevent the child from falling. Because if you carried the cradle board on your head and your head snapped back or you slipped, that cradle board could slip from your head. And so the ultimate protection of the child was always at play. The unconditional provision of safety and nurturance was always at play in that good life stage. And there's varying beliefs on how long that child would be in that stage of life. But during that time that the child was in the good life, they were not to touch the ground, to touch the actual earth, up until approximately 2 years old. And the reason for that is that there are many tribes on the earth that had a transition ceremony. And in Cree country, they call it the walking out ceremony, where the parents and the grandparents, upon the second year of a child's life, would get ready and prepare for the time that the child, the toddler, is walking out between the parents and the grandparents in this ceremony, and it's done at sunrise. And I won't go into details about all of the ceremony, but to say that there were each of these stages of the 7 parts of life, the 7 lives that we live while we're on the earth, has those kinds of ceremonies that have the community gather to watch this child become special. And so in that specialness, every time a person moves through a transition in life, that they're continuously throughout their whole life told that they're special, and that this walking out ceremony was to show that a child could make their first footprint on the earth, on Mother Earth, in ways that the whole community supported, in ways that the family. And so while they were in the Tikanagan, they got to see their world first. They got to hear their world first. As they're moving from that Tikanagan stage into the next stage of life, where they're putting their footprint on the earth, the whole community and the whole family is helping them understand how they are to do that. And they have an outfit that's made for them that's not a child's outfit. It's an adult's outfit, only smaller. Mm-hmm. And so our children always knew how they were going to look when they were bigger, what they were going to carry when they were bigger, what they would be involved in when they were bigger and older. And so in that way, the infant stage transitions from that stage of life into the next stage of life.